For our Epistemic Reparations Action Plan, we decided to focus on the ASU Schools of Engineering to pinpoint that growth is not always linear nor continuous, and we acknowledge that this can be carried into ASU as a facility as well. Before beginning, we would like to note that we're focusing on the United Nations Framework for Reparations Clause of Guarantee of Non-Repetition. Reparations is defined as making amends for the wrongdoing of oneself, and before jumping into present topics, it is necessary to include honorable mentions the school has contributed to. So women in engineering is noted as being highly important in this school to promote gender diversity and women in STEM. They're number 3 in degrees awarded to women, number 6 in women faculty, and number 12 in bachelor's degrees awarded to women. They do dedicate a page to diversity and inclusion, and they are number 5 in bachelor's degrees awarded to underrepresented minorities, number 6 in bachelor's degrees awarded to Hispanics, and they do have a diversity and inclusion initiative as the Ira A. Fulton Schools of Engineering. It is an initiative created to work on diversity in the schools of engineering. The purpose is to help provide funding for projects that display the goals listed of this initiative. An example of this would be the minority involvement in manufacturing engineering. Despite these efforts, it is necessary so that confrontation towards areas that still need improvement is the first step towards justice. So issues related to racism that we found is that it speaks on diversity in programs and schools, but lacks the attention on race specifically. Looking at the American Society for Engineering Education in 2019, the top 50 institutions of bachelor's degrees awarded to underrepresented minorities, ASU ranked number 5, yet statistics prove that 423 out of 2,881 degrees granted is what their numbers are, which is 14.7%, thus leaving them off the top 50 ranked by percentage. They are non-top 20 for degrees awarded to African American or Asian American people. In terms of issues related to white supremacy, based on previous statistics, degrees awarded in 2018 were 85.3% for white students. That is overwhelming white majority. Also, the imaging found on the Schools of Engineering page majorly lacks Black representation, which leads to assume there is a lack within these majors. It is important to bring up the correlation of these issues to systemic racism, defined as racism embedded in an organization through certain regulations as it gets disguised as discrimination, proving that racism isn't always intended or blunt. Module. The source, How Structural Racism Works by Trisha Rose, and gives insight to how such a facility can mistake what seems normal into what can really be viewed as racism. Trisha Rose defines structural racism as the normalization and legitimization of an array of dynamics that routinely advantage whites while producing cumulative and chronic adverse outcomes for people of color. We see this in the schools of engineering as white people naturally are advantaged just based on skin color, but this is evident in the opportunities they have as people of color have been succumbed to fear in such a majority white facility. Whether intended or not, it is the school's job to make all people feel included, and although there is written acknowledgement of this, it is about putting action into motion. Colorblind ideology minimizes the issues of race and how its present issues appear. This is integrated into the schools of engineering as the lack of ability to directly acknowledge its poor statistics of the integration of people of color create the idea that there is little room for improvement, as the page presents itself as if previous achievements are enough. As mentioned, inability to acknowledge equals inability to fully grow and repair. The school hides behind the facade of diversity and inclusion by overly expressing the many opportunities for women and people with disabilities as seen under student organizations. Although these are areas that include minorities who also have the same needs, nothing long-term will be solved unless all marginalized groups are included.
Hi, my name is Rachel Montmeyer-Blythe, and I will be talking about our modules. Our first is Module 4, Hank Stevenson's What Arizona's 2010 Ban on Ethnic Studies Could Mean for the Fight Over Critical Race Theory. Hank Stevenson showcases the rising issues with Arizona undermining critical race theory by discussing the damaging effects of the discontinuing of a program that helped Mexican American students. Republicans in the state of Arizona are desperately trying to prevent critical race theory of any kind, despite its positive interactions. Critical race theory is crucial to schools around the nation because it expands the horizons of students and gives them a better understanding of the world around them. What this would mean for Arizona is this would allow for women of color at the ASU School for Engineering to be in a better class setting where racial discrimination is discussed in depth, allowing for more women of color to enter the program with some comfort. Our second module is Module 10, PBS NewsHour. Universities look to the past to understand their relationships with race. Colleges around the United States have offered the minimum of reparations towards African Americans with things like monuments, which are beneficial, yet are not offering real education about their institutions. The ASU School of Engineering needs to recognize that its program has historically not been geared towards women of color and did not showcase the true numbers of women of color in STEM. ASU is a historically white institution that has been around since 1885, yet has not offered any real representation to students of color that attend the university today. ASU also needs to acknowledge and honor people of color that have attended ASU's School for Engineering by offering critical race theory and a deeper understanding of how the institution has played a role in systemic racism. Our third module is Module 12, The Case for Reparations by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Ta-Nehisi Coates makes the argument that colleges should offer courses on critical race theory, and in particular, African American courses to teach more about culture and history. While monetary and land reparations may not be in the cards for America, offering education on the true American history gives equal footing, thus providing reparations. By acknowledging that historically engineering programs have been geared towards white men and understanding that these practices are still in place could potentially open the door to learning and growth for women of color. The teaching of critical race theory would also offer a more open discussion on how women of color are treated at engineering schools without worrying about the repercussions that could potentially come with it.
When looking back at the definition of reparations, we are reminded how important it is for those who did wrong in the past to make up for these wrongdoings. We also realize that only people of color have the right to accept these reparations and deem them as admissible. So, how can we repair the issues found in ASU schools of engineering or ASU as a whole? Keeping track of the statistics in race to ensure non-repetition of lack of representation from previous years can keep programs under the school growing. Using the American Society for Engineering Education as a way to compare to other universities across America is a great way to keep track of the specific numbers in relation to other facilities. Admitting to fault within these statistics expresses that this is important to such a school in the first place. Creating more opportunities specifically for people of color is a great way to stay active in the field of reparations, whether that be scholarships or internship programs. These guide in compensation for lack of attention seen in history. We would like to specifically focus on internship programs as they provide real-life experience within the field that can highly benefit future careers. Finally, having more leaders that are a part of minorities creates strong role models for students and faculty to look up to, as this brings encouragement to others while letting them see that success comes in many colors. These are all small steps that are easily implementable, and although the school has acknowledged the issues at hand, reparations are a must to see the end of racism. In terms of the impact on community, faculty, students, and ASU as a whole, gives more opportunity for minority groups in engineering fields to succeed, as well as feel less out of place in classrooms. These less represented groups will be able to share their insights and experiences on issues that white men might not, allowing for lesser known problems in communities to be solved.